unsettle the backrooms of London, and it will echo through every African village, town, and city with pride and power. For centuries, Africa has been told that its only role was to supply raw resources for others, our gold stolen, our oil siphoned, our people exploited, our land left barren. For centuries, they told us we were too weak, too divided, too dependent to stand tall on the global stage. But tonight, that myth is dead. Tonight, the spirit of Sankara has returned in the flesh of Ibrahim. And the world is watching in awe. Captain Ibrahim has achieved what the colonizers swore was impossible. He has signed a colossal, unprecedented, earth-shattering deal, a $20 billion Maize agreement with Russia. Not in secret backrooms, not with conditions that enslave us, but with dignity, strength, and sovereignty at the forefront. This deal is not just about maize, it is about power. It is about Africa finally realizing that its soil is wealth, its farmers are warriors, and its harvest is a weapon that can silence centuries of exploitation. Think of it, Burkina Faso, once mocked as a landlocked, impoverished state, now commanding a deal so massive that it overshadows many economies of Europe, $20 billion from maize alone. Can you imagine what this means for schools, hospitals, industries, and the young men and women who have been left jobless for generations? Can you imagine what it means for Africa's bargaining power on the world stage? This is not a simple trade agreement, it is the breaking of chains. It is the dawn of a new era, and to the West, who thought Africa would forever remain a beggar at their table, the message is clear. We do not need your crumbs, we do not need your loans, we do not need your dictates. We will feed ourselves, enrich ourselves, and rise by ourselves. Captain Ibrahim has declared with this deal that Africa is no longer a pawn in your game, it is a king on the chessboard of global power. My brothers and sisters, tonight is not just news, it is history in motion. A leader has risen, a nation has spoken, and a continent has been awakened. The maize of Burkina Faso has become more valuable than the lies of the IMF, more powerful than the threats of NATO, and more enduring than the centuries of exploitation that preceded it. Stay with me, because over the next minutes, I will take you into the heart of this revolutionary deal. I will show you how it was forged, what it means for Africa, and why the West is trembling tonight. But let me be clear. What has happened is more than a transaction, it is a declaration that Africa will never again kneel, never again beg, and never again be silent. This is Africa's new beginning. This is the sound of freedom taking root in our soil. And this, my people, is only the beginning of the harvest that will change the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, people of Africa, and citizens of the world watching with bated breath, history has just been rewritten before our very eyes. What many thought was impossible has become a thunderous reality. What many assumed to be a dream has crystallized into the most powerful symbol of African economic independence in the 21st century. Burkina Faso, a land once dismissed as small, poor, and incapable of standing against the giants of global commerce, has just signed a maize deal worth a staggering $20 billion with none other than Russia. This is not merely an agreement of trade. This is the roar of sovereignty echoing across deserts, valleys, and mountains. This is the shattering of chains that once bound Africa's potential, and it has been achieved under the leadership of a man who has refused to bow, President Ibrahim Traore. For decades, we have watched as Western powers attempted to dictate what Africa could grow, what Africa could sell, and to whom Africa must sell it. Our crops were undervalued, our sweat and labor reduced to crumbs, and our farmers, our true heroes, were condemned to poverty while multinational corporations raked in untold billions. But today, with this deal, that chapter has ended. Traore has not only brought dignity to Burkina Faso's maize farmers, he has shown the world that Africa can negotiate as an equal, Africa can trade as a partner, and Africa can command the respect of powers that once dictated the rules of the game. Pause and imagine this. $20 billion injected directly into the veins of an African economy that was once dismissed as fragile. $20 billion not from loans with poisonous interest rates, not from exploitative aid packages tied to humiliation, but from the sweat of African soil, from the golden maize cultivated by African hands, from the dignity of a people who refused to remain silent. This is not charity. This is not dependency. This is trade at the highest level, honest, fair, and revolutionary. Today the markets tremble, the West grits its teeth, and the old powers whisper in disbelief. They ask themselves how a nation like Burkina Faso dared to rise and claim a seat at the global table, not as a beggar, not as a debtor, but as a king in its own right. And the answer is clear. Ibrahim Traore has done what others feared. He has lifted the veil of dependency, challenged the old masters, and proved that with courage, Africa can strike deals that change the world. Do not underestimate the symbolism of maize in this story. Maize is more than a crop. For centuries, it has been the food of survival, the meal that sustained farmers, families, soldiers, and students. It has been the humble grain of Africa's resilience, feeding millions even when the storms of poverty and war raged. And now, that very grain has become the weapon of economic emancipation. With this deal, maize has risen from the kitchens of Africa into the halls of global trade. From humble seeds in the Sahel to a contract signed with Moscow, maize has carried the banner of African pride. But we must also speak about what this deal means beyond the numbers. It is not just the size of the contract that shocks the world, it is the meaning. For the first time in modern history, Africa has chosen partnership on its own terms. No IMF signatures binding us in debt slavery. No World Bank dictating the pace of our development. No European leaders arriving with conditions, lectures, and veiled threats. Instead, a handshake between equals, a contract that recognizes Africa's value, and a path forward where dignity is not negotiable. Do you hear that sound? It is the sound of farmers in Burkina Faso celebrating because their maize, once bought for pennies by exploiters, is now valued in billions. It is the sound of African youth seeing that their leaders can create opportunities that will keep them from drowning in the seas of migration or dying in deserts chasing dreams in foreign lands. It is the sound of Pan-African hope igniting across borders, from Bamako to Dakar, from Accra to Addis Ababa. This is no longer just a Burkinabe victory, it is an African awakening. And let the truth be spoken clearly, the West is terrified. They do not fear the maize itself. They fear the symbol. They fear the example. They fear that if one small landlocked nation can secure a $20 billion deal, then what will stop Nigeria from doing the same with oil on its own terms? What will stop Congo from doing the same with cobalt? What will stop Ghana from doing the same with cocoa, or Kenya with tea, or Ethiopia with coffee? They fear the domino effect of African sovereignty. And they should. Because tonight, with this deal, the first domino has fallen, and it will not stop until the last colonial chain has been broken. But we must not deceive ourselves. Victories like these come with enemies. Already, in the backrooms of Western capitals, strategies are being drawn to undermine this achievement. They will try to destabilize Burkina Faso, to assassinate its reputation, to corrupt its leaders, to bribe its farmers, and to spread lies through their controlled media. They will paint this deal as dangerous, reckless, or even illegitimate. But let me assure you, the truth cannot be buried. When a farmer plants a seed, no matter how much the enemy tramples the soil, the seed will push through, find the sun, and grow strong. This deal is that seed, and it will grow into a tree of sovereignty whose roots they cannot cut. Tonight, the name of Ibrahim Traore stands alongside the giants of African resistance. He is not just a president. He has become a symbol of defiance, a torchbearer of dignity, and a builder of futures. When he signed that document with Russia, he signed not only for Burkina Faso, but for the millions of Africans who have waited for a leader brave enough to say, enough is enough. Brothers and sisters, let us not watch this victory with folded arms. Let us not treat it as a spectacle. This is a call to action for every African nation, every farmer, every worker, every youth. The maize deal is not just a deal, it is a blueprint. It is proof that Africa's wealth is enough to free Africa if managed by leaders with courage. It is proof that unity with those who respect us is stronger than dependency on those who exploit us. It is proof that Africa's time has come, and it will not be stopped. And so tonight, as the world listens, let us declare this. The age of Africa's begging bowl is over. The age of Africa's trade throne has begun. The maize of Burkina Faso is now the flag of African pride, and Ibrahim Traore has hoisted it high for the world to see. What Captain Ibrahim Traore has delivered is not simply a $20 billion maize deal with Russia. It is the rewriting of Africa's destiny, the dismantling of centuries-old chains, and the planting of seeds that will blossom into a new civilization of African dignity, African power, and African wealth. This is no longer about one nation, one leader, or one contract. This is about Africa finally realizing that its soil is gold, its hands are strong, and its unity is unstoppable. Burkina Faso has shown us that a people, once dismissed by the colonialists as weak, can rise and set an example for the entire continent. Russia, by standing shoulder to shoulder with Captain Traore, has recognized that Africa will no longer be approached as a begging child, but as a sovereign partner whose resources, whose sweat, and whose brilliance are worth more than the entire Western banking system. And to those in Washington, Paris, London, and Brussels who tremble tonight as they read these words, who cannot sleep because their exploitative dreams are collapsing, this is your reckoning. For centuries you have stolen our maize, our cocoa, our gold, our oil, our diamonds, and even our very humanity. But today, Africa says no more. Burkina Faso is not for sale. Mali is not for sale. Niger is not for sale. Africa is not for sale. This $20 billion maize deal is a weapon. It is not a weapon of destruction, but a weapon of creation. It is the weapon that will build schools, the weapon that will build hospitals, the weapon that will power industries, the weapon that will put food on the table of every African child. And it is the weapon that will destroy forever the myth that Africa cannot rise without the West. My brothers and sisters, the future has already begun. From the villages of Ouagadougou to the farmlands of Mali, from the deserts of Niger to the ports of Ghana, a new sound is echoing. It is the sound of tractors plowing African land, not for foreign masters, but for African people. It is the sound of silos filling with maize, not to be stolen by multinationals, but to be exported with dignity in exchange for billions that return to African soil. It is the sound of a continent shaking off the chains of hunger and dependency. Captain Ibrahim Traore has done more than sign a deal. He has signed a declaration of war against poverty, against exploitation, against neocolonialism. He has declared that Africa will feed itself, will enrich itself, and will command the respect of every nation on earth. And in this war, Africa will not lose, because the weapons are not bombs or guns. The weapons are our soil, our maize, our unity, and our unbreakable will. So let the West watch in fear. Let them whisper in their parliaments and plan in their embassies. It will not save them. The deal has been struck. The harvest has begun, and the new era of African dominance has dawned. Tonight, I tell you this, the road will not be easy. They will try to sabotage. They will attempt to assassinate. They will spread lies, sanctions, and threats. But for every bullet they fire, we will plant another field. For every sanction they impose, we will sign another partnership. For every lie they tell, we will show them the truth of our harvest. Because Africa is awake. Africa is no longer begging. Africa is no longer waiting. Africa is moving forward with Captain Ibrahim Traore leading the charge. And to every child in Africa who goes to bed hungry tonight, I say, your hunger will be no more. To every farmer who tills the soil without reward, I say, your sweat will be rewarded. To every youth who dreams of dignity and power, I say, your future has arrived. Burkina Faso has spoken. Russia has answered. And the world must listen. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The maize fields of Burkina Faso are not just fields of grain. They are fields of revolution. They are the soil where the West will finally be buried and where Africa's empire will rise. And so, with the eyes of the world upon us, let us proclaim with one voice, as Captain Ibrahim Traore himself declared, Africa will never kneel again. Africa will never beg again. Africa will never be enslaved again. The $20 billion maize deal is not just a contract. It is the flag of our new independence. Let it wave high above the savannas, deserts, rivers, and mountains of our beloved continent. Let it tell the world that Africa has risen, and nothing, no empire, no president, no weapon, no sanction, will ever hold us down again. The future is ours. The harvest is ours. The victory is ours.